The love story that America can't stop talking about. The phrase had already become a wildfire, whispered in cafes, shouted across newsrooms, and typed millions of times across glowing phone screens. No one knew exactly when the story began, only that it slipped into the country's collective imagination like a spark landing in dry grass. And at the center of all that noise stood two people who never asked for attention, never chased fame, and never imagined their quiet lives would become national obsession. It started on a rain-slick Tuesday in Manhattan, the kind of day where the sky hangs low and the streets glimmer like sheets of black glass. Evelyn Hart, a documentary photographer known for capturing forgotten places, hurried under her umbrella toward Grand Central Station. She wasn't running late. She simply liked moving with purpose, as though every step was another frame in the film of her life. She never saw the man she collided with, only felt the jolt, the sudden spinning world, her camera slipping from her hand, and then a warm, steady hold, fingers catching both her wrist and the camera in one reflexive move. "Careful," he said. His voice carried no drama, just a calm rhythm that cut straight to the thunder of the city. Evelyn blinked at him. Tall, rain on his hair, a navy coat that somehow stayed crisp despite the storm, and eyes, sharp, observant eyes, that looked at her as though he recognized her from somewhere, though they had never met. "I'm so sore," she began, but he raised the camera between them. "You almost lost this," he said softly, "and something tells me it means more to you than your umbrella." She couldn't help a laugh. "You have no idea." The stranger smiled back, just for a second, a real smile, the kind that rewrites a moment, the kind that stays. She would later tell herself she should have walked away right then, but instead she offered her hand. "Evelyn." "Michael," he said. They shook hands beneath the city rain, as if completing some ancient ritual. And that should have been it. Just a fleeting, polite encounter. But Michael took a breath, hesitated, and asked a question that changed everything. "Would you walk with me?" "Only for a few minutes. I feel like I'm supposed to talk to you." Evelyn should have refused. She was practical, disciplined, deeply allergic to unnecessary risks. Yet something about him, his stillness in the storm, the way he spoke with clarity instead of charm, disrupted her usual instincts. She nodded. They walked to the grand arches of the station, trailing small footprints across marble floors. Evelyn asked him what he did for a living, expecting lawyer, maybe professor. He answered with a wry twist of his lips. "I travel, and I help where I can." It sounded almost evasive, yet sincere. Mysterious without being theatrical. She didn't push. Michael didn't volunteer more. And still, the air between them thrummed with an inexplicable familiarity, as though each step tightened a thread that had always connected them. They reached the departure board where trains blinked and clicked like chattering teeth. Michael stopped there, turning to her with the expression of someone trying to memorize a face. "I'm leaving in 10 minutes, he said. "I don't know when I'll be back." Evelyn's heart shifted. "Then why ask me to walk with you?" "Because it felt wrong not to." His voice was lower now. "And because you look like someone who understands that some moments matter even if they're brief." She didn't know what to say. He slipped a small folded paper into her hand. Barely a gesture, barely a wait. Then stepped away, fading into the crowd without looking back. Evelyn didn't unfold the note until she was standing alone under the high ceilings. On it was a single sentence, written in a clean, deliberate script. "If our paths cross again, it's because they were meant to." No phone number. No last name. Nothing to bridge the gap between connection and impossibility. She stared at the words long enough for the edges of the paper to grow soft between her fingers. 2 weeks passed. She told no one about him. But the universe, behaving with its usual mischievous timing, had already decided it wasn't done with them. The next encounter didn't happen in New York. It happened in a crowded diner in Arizona. Evelyn had flown there on assignment, chasing a story about disappearing towns. She sat alone at the counter, reviewing photos on her camera, and then someone slid onto the stool beside her. She didn't look up at first, only when she heard the quiet, familiar timbre of his voice. "You kept the camera." Did she freeze, breath catching in her throat? She turned slowly. Michael. No rain this time. No collision. Just the same steady presence, the same unreadable warmth in his eyes. "You," she whispered. How are you here?" "That's a longer story," he said, "and I don't intend to run off before telling it." Evelyn felt something inside her unlock. A door she hadn't realized she'd been holding shut. And that was the moment their story, the story America couldn't stop talking about, truly began. Across the next weeks, their meetings unfolded like something written by a restless universe. Unexpected places, uncanny timing, conversations that seemed to pick up from some invisible thread neither of them fully understood. Michael revealed pieces of his life slowly, as though each truth required careful shaping. Evelyn found herself drawn not just to him, but to the space between their lives where coincidence seemed too precise to be accidental. What neither of them knew yet was that someone had already noticed them, someone quietly recording their encounters from afar, someone who would soon thrust their private world into the blinding glare of national attention, turning two ordinary hearts into an impossible legend. And the storm that followed would test every fragile thread holding them together, threatening to unravel the quiet, impossible bond that began with one accidental collision in the New York rain. The story continues. The cameras flashed like lightning the night their story first broke. Two silhouettes caught in a moment so intimate, so unexpected, that America froze mid-breath. People didn't know their names yet, but they felt something in that stolen frame. A spark, a secret, a love so impossible it shouldn't have happened. Yet somehow it did. And this is where everything truly began. Elena Rowe had never believed in destiny. New York had taught her that very little in life arrived by fate. Everything was earned, fought for, or taken. At 26, she was already a rising investigative journalist, known for her sharp instincts and her even sharper questions. She didn't chase scandals. Scandals found her. But she never expected one particular scandal to change her entire life. It was a cold November evening when she met him. Elias Hart, America's youngest and most elusive tech billionaire, a man whose every appearance ignited speculation. Some called him brilliant. Others called him dangerous. Everyone called him untouchable. But Elena saw something else entirely the first moment he looked at her. She had been sent to cover his foundation gala, a glittering event filled with people who wore diamonds like armor and smiles like lies. Elena wandered through that world like an outsider, scanning the room for a truth worth capturing. She didn't know she was about to collide with the biggest truth of her life. Elias noticed her before she saw him. He watched her move through the crowd, not with envy, not with hunger, but with genuine curiosity. While others tried to impress, Elena simply observed. When she reached for a glass of sparkling water, her fingers brushed someone else's. She looked up, startled, and found Elias standing there. "You don't like champagne either?" he asked quietly. She raised an eyebrow. "How did you know?" "You hesitated," he said. "People only hesitate when they're doing something they don't actually want to do." She almost laughed. "You read people like code, don't you?" "And you read truths hidden in shadows," he replied, his voice low. That was the first spark, unplanned, unguarded. They should have walked away. Both knew better. But destiny, it seemed, had a mind of its own. Their conversations moved like a secret song between them. Quick glances across the room, stolen minutes on the balcony away from the crowd, and a quiet understanding that something dangerous had begun to take shape. Elena wasn't supposed to get close. Elias wasn't supposed to let anyone in. Yet there they were, leaning toward each other under a sky full of winter stars as the city hummed below, unaware that history was shifting with every breath they shared. And then came the moment the world would later replay on talk shows, news segments, and social feeds, an image captured by a photographer who wasn't even supposed to be there. Elias lifting a strand of Elena's hair away from her face as the wind brushed it across her lips. A gesture too tender to be casual, too intimate to ignore, too explosive to stay hidden. America saw the picture. America whispered. And America chose a side long before Elena or Elias realized they crossed a line no one could uncross. Now, as the story unfolds further, Elena finds herself chasing answers she never expected, and Elias discovers that the one woman he should stay away from might be the only one who understands the storm he carries. Elena woke the next morning to a city buzzing louder than usual. Her phone glowed with notifications. Hundreds of them. Articles, headlines, guessing games, speculations, and at the center of everything, her face. She sat up slowly, heart pounding, as she clicked on the first notification. Tech titan Elias Hart spotted an intimate moment with unknown woman. Unknown woman. Her private moment turned into the nation's obsession overnight. A knock on the door pulled her from her spiraling thoughts. Her best friend, Maya, rushed in holding her tablet. Elena, you're trending everywhere. Everywhere, she said breathlessly. What exactly happened last night? Elena swallowed. Nothing that the world thinks happened. Maya stared at her. But something did happen? Elena looked away. I don't know how to explain it. Meanwhile, across the city, Elias stood in his penthouse, staring at the same photograph. His advisor, Victor Hale, paced behind him. This is not ideal, Victor muttered. The investors are calling. The board want answers. You need to release a statement, preferably denying everything. Elias didn't respond. Elias, Victor insisted. We can't let emotions ruin everything you've built. Elias finally turned his jaw tight. That moment wasn't fabricated, and I won't lie about it. Victor froze. He had known Elias for years, and he had seen the man face political pressure, lawsuits, and billion-dollar crises with unwavering calm. But this was different. This was personal. Then what do you want to do? Victor asked quietly. Elias didn't answer, because he didn't know. Because for the first time in his life, the correct move wasn't obvious. Instead of drafting a statement, Elias made a decision that shocked the entire team. He left. He walked out of the penthouse, past security, right into the cold morning air. Every instinct told him to stay hidden, but his heart, something he rarely listened to, pulled him elsewhere, toward her. Elena was sitting at a cafe, trying to breathe through the chaos. When she felt someone's presence behind her, she turned slowly. Elias stood there, hands in his pockets, eyes full of everything he couldn't say on camera. I'm sorry, he said softly. You didn't ask for any of this. She shook her head. Neither did you. He hesitated, then sat across from her. We need to talk. Not as journalist and billionaire. Not as people the world is speculating about. Just as us. Elena's throat tightened. You're assuming there isn't U.S. He held her gaze, unblinking. Last night felt like the beginning of something. Elena looked down at her trembling hands. And beginnings scare me. Me too, he whispered. The cafe door chimed, but neither of them noticed. The world might have branded their connection a scandal, a mystery, a headline, but sitting across from each other now, it felt like something far more dangerous. Something real. And just as Elena opened her mouth to speak, a shadow fell over their table. Someone neither of them expected. Someone whose arrival would shift the course of their lives even further. The crowd that had once gathered to witness their downfall now gathered for something else entirely. Something quieter, almost reverent. News channels called it the most unpredictable ending to the love story America couldn't stop talking about, but neither Ethan nor Mariah cared for titles anymore. Their world had shrunk to one simple truth. After everything they'd lost, after everything they'd survived, love had somehow remained. Mariah stood on the pier where it had all started months earlier, the evening wind brushing her hair in soft waves. The same sky that once felt heavy now glowed in bands of gold and violet. Ethan approached slowly, the echo of his footsteps folding into hum of the water. For a moment they simply looked at each other. Two people shaped by chaos, finally facing the calm that followed. Ethan spoke first, his voice low. I didn't know if you'd come. I almost didn't, Mariah said. Not because I didn't want to, but because, after everything, I didn't know if showing up meant breaking again. And you're afraid to break? I'm afraid of breaking in a way you can't fix, she whispered. Ethan exhaled, stepping closer. Then let me be clear, I'm not here to fix you. I'm here because when the world tore everything apart, you were the one thing that stayed real. The words settled between them, like a gentle tide. Mariah closed her eyes for a moment, letting them breathe into the places inside her that had been bruised and silenced for too long. When she opened them again, she saw not the man who had once carried too many secrets, but the man who had fought like hell to finally be honest. People watched from a distance, not with the hungry eyes of gossip, but with something else entirely. Something like hope. Something like the recognition that love stories are never perfect, never smooth, never predictable, but sometimes, when two people refuse to give up, they become unforgettable. Mariah stepped forward. If I walk toward you now, I'm choosing everything. Not the fame, not the noise, not the story the world keeps spinning. Just you, only you. Ethan swallowed, emotion burning in his throat. Then walk to me. And she did, slowly, deliberately, as if every step rewrote the chapters that had nearly broken them. When she reached him, his hands found her face, gentle as sunlight. The world seemed to still. No reporters, no spectators, no shadows from their past. Just two hearts beating in a rhythm that had survived more than most ever would. I thought love was supposed to be beautiful, Mariah murmured. It is, Ethan said, just not in the way people imagine. It's beautiful because it survives. Her breath trembled. So what happens now? Ethan didn't answer with words. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the simplest silver ring. No diamonds, no glitter, nothing extravagant. Just something honest. Mariah stared at it, stunned, not because she hadn't imagined this moment, but because she had imagined it in 100 different ways and none felt as real as this one. He didn't kneel. He didn't perform. He simply held out his hand, like a promise. This isn't a grand gesture, he said. It's a quiet one, the kind that lasts longer than applause. I don't want a perfect story. I want a real life. With you, if you still choose me after everything, then this is my answer. Mariah's eyes filled, not with heartbreak this time, but with the weight of something new, something whole. Ethan, she whispered, her voice shaking, I choose you, not because of the story the world knows, but because of the parts they never saw. The ring slipped onto her finger in a moment so delicate it felt almost fragile, but the feeling that flooded her chest was anything but. And then, quietly, unexpectedly, people around them began to applaud. Not loudly, not wildly, just softly, as though they all understood that something sacred had just unfolded before their eyes. News headlines would explode within hours. Commentators would analyze every detail. Millions would talk, argue, adore, or criticize. The story would trend again and again, spiraling across platforms, screens, and conversations. But none of it mattered, because as Ethan pulled Mariah into his arms and she pressed her forehead to his, everything noisy in the world melted away. They had lived through chaos, betrayal, loss, and redemption, and yet somehow the final chapter wasn't about tragedy or scandal, but about a quiet, steady kind of love. The kind that didn't need to be perfect to be powerful. The kind that survived because it refused to quit. The kind America couldn't stop talking about because deep down, everyone longed to believe something so impossible could still be true. As the last rays of sun dipped behind the horizon, Ethan and Mariah walked up the pier together, fingers intertwined, steps synchronized, not into a flawless future, but into a real one. A future where love wasn't a headline, but the home they built piece by piece, after the world had finally stopped watching. And in that final glow of fading gold, their story, once chaotic, once painful, once unbelievable, became something timeless, something earned, something unforgettable.